Greetings, everyone, and welcome to We Are ACEDS Live, streaming on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo, and I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we will be joined by the Chief Innovation Officer, Mike Sarlo from Haystack, a leading service provider in the e-discovery industry, providing professional technology services across the globe to law firms and Fortune 500 companies. ACEDS has worked with Haystack for many years. They always bring value to the membership. So we thought it'd be great to have a conversation, talk with them about some of the burning issues in e-discovery. Mike Sarlo, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for making time. Hope you and yours are well.
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Mike. We love, working with ACEDS. So really excited to be here.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I don't know. Let's dive right in. So, I mean, there's a lot of talk in the industry. There's the 24-hour news cycle. We are not immune to it. It's
right.
You see it in politics, but we see it in e-discovery too. And so, I guess my first question out of the box is, what are you seeing as the most important trends that are currently shaping the e-discovery industry?
Yeah, well, I think we're at a point in the industry where, our client base is inherently, more sophisticated. And we've still seen quite a bit of insourcing, of technology, of people, of resources and a wide gamut of expertise. But at the same time, we're still seeing data sets grow, and we're seeing the burden, I think, being placed on in-house e-discovery professionals is expanding beyond really the typical confines of litigation support into more information governance, into cybersecurity, right? Into cyber incident response. There's somewhat of a layering of all things like data that I think is a really big trend here to be successful for anybody in this industry. You have to be able to kind of be flexible and thinking about data, not just as something related to a legal matter or a litigation.
Yeah, no, we're seeing that a lot too. Like just the move to the left, right? And we say the left. What are we talking about? We're talking about the EDRM. We're talking about those processes that sit sort of pre-discovery, information governance, cyber, privacy, all those things. And that's a big movement today. Everybody's trying to get their heads wrapped around the data on that side of it, so that the processes downstream are much more efficient.
Yep. And, I really, I think you raised a great point, right? The privacy issues, right? I think, here in the US, right, we're just all have to be so much more aware of it. And I think that's really, the modus operandum for, what we're seeing as far as, the need for a wider skill set and the need for, thinking about those types of issues in any matter, right? Anytime you're doing data processing. So that's a conversation that we're having, with all our clients at the start of every single engagement. And it wasn't really like that, even 3-4 years ago. Everybody gets a DPA now, right? And so that's always a fun contracting slog, but it's gotten better, right? And so we're seeing at the same time that organizations understand, what we're doing. So it's really important, I think, to have those conversations, right?
Yeah, and I've started to see that. So those DPAs, data protection agreements, for anyone who's not aware, usually it was lost in the terms and conditions of some master service agreement. It's one paragraph. We agree to do blah, blah, blah. And now there's full-blown agreements saying you're going to do this, this, and this in accordance with that, that, and that. And they've really gotten I'm going to say it, but I'm probably going to get criticized for it. Is they're getting overblown.
Yeah.
But I mean, as the law evolves, I guess we're going to have to change with it.
Well, you know what? When we have, I'm more complexity, the lawyers love it, right? So, I see some of these documents there. I'm 20 pages, right? Long. So we've done a lot of work to, create a set of documents that, isn't 20 pages, but will, cover us and our clients, and really in the EU, here in the US, and the evolving, privacy landscape here in the US and in Canada, all in a single like document. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that we have a good like process there. So just in short, really important, I think, for e-discovery like professionals to be like thinking about like privacy.
I wonder if there isn't some, there's all kinds of standards and certifications out there for organizations. I wonder if there isn't some sort of eventual clearinghouse for, hey, I'm compliant, I am whatever certified, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you kind of go, I'm like towards like ISO, as you kind of, you start to implement, the more, I'm like robust, like NIST, I'm like security, I'm like profiles and, your SOC 2s, you're generally getting there, right? From, a technology standpoint. It's really about then taking a look at the data flows, I'm like internally. And I can tell you this, I mean, you can't get cyber insurance, right? If you're not, like thinking about this stuff.
Right.
And that's a huge issue, right? Is just for everybody, who's trying to go out and to like get this type of like coverage. And they're looking at your policies, they're looking at your procedures, they're looking at how you're storing that type of like personal data, which I think has gone, this is where we're seeing now, right? That like concision of, like skill sets and expertise and the way that we think about just handling data and using e-discovery tools. There's a lot more, like corporate like backing to go through these exercises. There's a lot more, I think, like insight from the C-suite, right? Where, we need to actually, like do this work. And oftentimes there's a lot of other things going on in the business of why it needs to be done, like trying to get like, your cyber like coverage, right?
Mm. So we kind of answered my second question, so I'm going to jump ahead. The second question was about how are you staying adaptable and responsive to these needs? So, so we looked at the present. We're talking about current trends, and we're going to get into Chat GPT in a minute. But how do you see e-discovery as an industry evolving in the next 3, 5, 7 years? What should we be thinking about that we're not thinking about?
Yeah, I see it, really, I think there's a continuous need for more like expertise. I think that, having a solid handling of the digital like forensics like process, being able to be adaptable to handle, these alternative like data, like data types, and having folks who can guide, your clients and organizations to create a defensible, like process. Oftentimes, like using their own like tooling, and really needing to scale that, right? So it's a different place with the types of data and the level of like complexity that we handle as a vendor, right? And the tools, the Office 365, the archiving tools, they're all getting like better and more complex, right? So, but they change so often, right? With no like documentation, that there's still a need to bring in the experts, right? And so you're really in a position now, I think, where it's so important that we have to kind of stay up to date with all of these like like tangential, like technologies that are sometimes like buried in the process. So I think just a need for more, a need for more like technical like expertise, is somewhere I think like where the industry is going. I think kind of the separation of the PM, who's who like isn't the doer. In some ways, that is still the case, but these folks need to be, I think, like more technical, like long term. And we're also finding that skill sets, like acquired for, like quite a bit of the work we do just requires kind of a next gen, like IT like thinking, really understanding how the cloud actually, like works from an infrastructure like standpoint. There's just a lot more, like data out there in enterprise information like technology that you need to be able to handle.
So quick follow-up on that, because you raise a good point. And whenever I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about what's coming next. And is there a data, and not to put you on the spot, if you don't know, just say you don't know, but is there a data type that nobody's really thought about that's out there that we're going to eventually have to deal with? Is there a source of data that just like, is it something from Mars or what? What?
We hear a lot about, like Web3 and, the metaverse and, like
Mm,
NFTs. I think, the virtual reality, like revolution really won't really come, I think, in the VR like sense and the way that we interact with it for, so long. But in the augmented, like reality sense, I think there's going to be quite a bit of data that, will need to be like collected and analyzed, right? So, as we start to see the Apple like glasses like come out that they've been, like working on for years and years and years, that's going to be a major, like technology like push. And, the augmented reality is all about, you know, um, really being able to merge, a digital experience with, actual like reality. So
mm.
it's going to be, like quite a bit there. We'll probably, I think we'll be living in a world that, somewhat like looks like, the first like Blade Runner. Like we put our glasses on with these huge ads everywhere, right? So it's going to be interesting, especially in the advertisement space and the personal like data space. The lines are about to become, I think, a little bit more blurred there. And there's all these ethical issues, right? We start to think we're seeing now, I think in the news cycle, right, this discussion about, your like brain like rights and these technology rights, and so there's a lot of ethical issues that will need to be resolved and dealt with.
All right, let's shift gears. Personally, I look forward to the day when I can just sit in a chair and have on some equipment and just like be relaxed. And
Right.
I don't know what the data looks like,
Right.
but I can actually get my work done in a matrix-like
Sure.
environment.
Yeah, me too.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We the industry's always been good at adapting to change. So let's talk a little bit about change in natural language processing, AI. How do you see these advancements? And obviously, there's been like a ton of press on Chat GPT
Sure.
and all the things it does right and wrong. Um, and so, how do you see this new sort of wave of technology, generative AI technology, impacting e-discovery?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of use cases, right? We have a lot of information, as a large, like enterprise, we are processing and, like synthesizing on a day to day, like basis. I think that there is a real opportunity when you start to think about, like generative AI to learn about your business, your customers, your matters, and to really be a tool in the project, like management, like process where you can use these tools to, interpret a large amount of inbound data, not necessarily your files, right, related to a matter, but the communications, the workflow, right? I really see it becoming an assistant in a way to really, help to add another layer of organization around the e-discovery, like process, like in general. I think that's where actually we'll see this being used, like first, right? And there's, like other industries that are using these types of chatbots, so much more, like natively, like in their business to interact with, like customers. We don't really do that in the discovery, right? It's really, a human to human. It's very hands-on. But obviously, we're starting to like blur the lines, right? We have some folks who never get on the phone, right? They're just always, they're always like communicating by email. It also, I think, like creates an opportunity for probably more like complex like bots to start to be actually, like pushing the buttons in an array of technology. So not necessarily setting up an automation layer, like that like lives on top of the tech. I'm sorry, that lives in the tech, but really having a bot that really will, like move the mouse and actually can, like execute a wide gamut of tasks like a human would. And so that's something that I've always been surprised that nobody has achieved that yet in this industry, or they just haven't really spent the time. But I think that's coming now, right? For sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, responding to basic if-then statements, right?
Right.
If And that's what automation really is about. Um, but I think what you're describing, if I characterize it wrong, correct me, is these tools are just augmenting human work. They are not replacing anybody. There's always the fear that, the robo lawyers are coming. And I just don't see that anytime soon. Nothing's going to replace the reasoning, the logic of the human brain. So am I characterizing that correctly? Just
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think the robots will, like replace us in many ways, right? I don't think from the critical, from the critical like thinking like standpoint, I don't think we're there yet. We're, we are like we are like well like far from that. But I think for doing the work, right, and actually being able to tell something to do something, not using an if then, right, really speaking to it like an assistant, and to add that extra layer, that's going to be here, I think very soon. So actually, I think there's a real change in the economy that's about to happen that people really aren't fully aware of.
yeah, no, and look, I think if anything that makes us more productive, I think is
Right,
help. Yeah.
right.
So just digging in a little bit, does it change like doc review in any way?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, when we think about, like document review and AI, it's, how fast can I find that needle in the haystack, right? How can I get to the most, like critical piece of information that's going to have an impact on my case, right? I think it'd just be a faster, like go to market in some cases, and just a better, different type of search, right? It's really also about being able to search. And for, I think when you start thinking about this type of tooling, it should, you want it to be able to understand your case more than just a yes no, right? So it can strategically, I think, start to web things of interest around, more of the, like conceptual like concepts that are related to your case, not necessarily what's just in the four corners of the document. So I think with this type of generative, like AI, we're moving away from the four corners, right? That's all that a computer can really understand. Like now is you have to have text, and it really just only understands that, like document. Doesn't oftentimes understand the concepts around, around and outside of the documents. It doesn't understand the law. It doesn't understand really the players and their wants, right? And so it really should like provide a lot more in that domain over time, where we are very far from it. I think we're very far from it fully being like realized. It's going to be, like many years in the
And
doc review space.
appreciate that. And what do you think? I mean, it's hard to talk about AI without sort of introducing the notion of ethics and bias and things like that. What if anything do you think needs to be done to sort of keep it under control? Lawyers have very specific ethical requirements that they have to comply with. They have to
Yeah.
supervise. They have to maintain a level of competence. They have to have confidence, maintain confidences and privilege. All those things. When you're talking about sort of an open source solution, kind of some of those things kind of go out the window, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think your AI is only as smart as the data it's trained on, and there, is a wide, like body of like different types of standards for like vetting and validating, like AI to remove like bias that are coming out. You have, like action like committees, like in the EU. You're seeing folks in South America really start to think about this. It's heavily somewhat tangential to the, like privacy like process, and like going through that process, I think creates a more like sensible and repeatable approach to understanding how an AI model is trained, the types of data inputs that are that can be in there, hopefully like with the goal of removing bias. But removing bias can be a massive challenge, right? You're constantly, as you really start to train a data set with the amount of data that folks are thinking about, with like something like like Chat GPT that can just like answer like any like question and talk like a human. There is so much data. There's so much bias that's like built into it. It's tough to really start to kind of like pull that apart, and eventually, you hope you achieve a point that the machine can really be like self like correcting like in that way. So
Yeah.
we'll see where things end up.
Yeah, no, appreciate that as well. All right, we're almost at time, but before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to say what is Haystack doing in this space? Is there anything you want to highlight to our listeners today to say Haystack is at the cutting edge?
Yeah, I mean, Haystack has, made just, like significant, investments and really building out a data science, like team, like getting people who, um, were, more, like experts in, like tangential, like work streams to our industry. They were sitting in, on like big tech and, like bringing them in here, or we're solving really complex, like data challenges for our clients. It's not necessarily just about using the AI, in the way that we're speaking about it. It's also using AI to scale to handle just, like massive like quantities of data at a much faster like clip. So we deal a lot now with, just an incredible amount of, like structured data, like not the unstructured stuff, but just the databases, right? And you're talking, like millions and millions of rows, right, of data. Being able to analyze that, at a fast clip, and to be able to really allow our customers to have, like different types of levers to understand that data, and I think that we like create those levers, right? And that's what we do really good. So yeah, we're been really good there. We continue to develop, our own AI, via our like protect, like analytics that does, like quite a bit. We do, like sensitive like data like detection that is context, like sensitive, or I think a lot of our competitors and just in general, it's more of a regular expression on the back end that's identifying data. We're actually, are training our engines to see what's going on. We do like source code like detection. We do, like facial like recognition. And, oftentimes we have these customers who come to us and say, hey, we need this. And these data science are native to our teams now, the my data scientists. So we're having, like these discussions and are doing things so much faster, using our own tooling, to solve, very specific, like problems for our customers that, are unique to them, that are unique to their business, are unique to their matter. So, like that's been really great. And it's really given us a huge, like competitive, advantage, I think, over the competition.
That's fantastic. Good luck with all that stuff. So, arguably the biggest conference of the year is around the corner, Legal Week.
Hey, yep.
Anyone who's paying attention, anything special you're doing there? I assume we'll see you there.
Oh, yep. You'll see me. We've got quite a bit in the works, so you'll have to wait and see.
I knew I couldn't pull it out.
We have to stave all of our splashes, right, for legal.
No, it's like pulling.
Right.
It's like a Marvel movie premiere. You can't get anything out until
Right.
Everybody's under NDA.
We're really excited though. I think this legal tech is, the full return to normalcy. It was pretty normal, like last year, but I think even now it's just, there's no more COVID. We're like, see you later and let's get out there, right, and get back to business. So we're really excited.
There you have it. All right. Mike Sarlo, Chief Innovation Officer at Haystack. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you are interested in our short form video interviews like this, you can find us. You can find We Are ACEDS in your LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook feeds. Check out the ACEDS YouTube channel where you can watch previous interviews and live streams. Thanks for joining us today, Mike. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Bye, everybody.